All right, what's up, Dragon Brood? We got more Duskmourn previews, and we are on day 10. I think technically it's like day 11 or 12, but they had some days that didn't actually have previewed cards. But we're starting out strong today with what is probably, I thought the green one was going to be the best Overlord or whatever, but this one's pretty damn good. So we have Overlord of the Baelmerk. 3 colorless, black, black for a 5/5 enchantment creature avatar horror. So it's checking all the boxes there like the other ones. Has an impending 5, but a cost of 2. So you pay 2, and then 5 turns later, you get this thing. When it enters or attacks, you mill 4 cards. Then you can return a non-avatar creature card or a planeswalker from your graveyard to your hand. So what I like about this is a couple of things. Obviously, the impending cost of 2 is really cheap to just get a use of it. And if you're already playing something that wants to mill your graveyard, if you need to hit Delirium, whatever, this is a good card for those for just a simple cost of 2. And then later you get a 5/5 body. Now, it does put the card in your hand instead of into play, but that's fine because it's such a cheap cost. But if you actually just want to cast this, it's only 5 mana, right? Several of the other ones are very expensive. But 5 is totally reasonable to just pay for this and have a 5/5 body with immediate effect, right? You get to mill stuff, put something in your hand, and when you attack, you get to do it again. So this could be a very playable of the Overlords, probably up there with the green one. I think the green one's still probably generally the strongest one, especially once we have 1 mana creatures. But this one's not bad at all. Waltz of Rage, that's a name. 3 colorless, red, red sorcery. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to each other creature until end of turn. Whenever a creature you control dies, exile the top of your library. You may play it until the end of your next turn. This is kind of crazy. All right, so the biggest creature you have gets to deal its power to everything, and then if you have some things die, you get to play extra cards until the end of your next turn. There has to be a use for this. I'm not going to call this great, but this isn't bad either. Like, there's some cases where this could make a lot of sense. Like, even if you're just playing like tokens or whatever and your opponent's got a few things out, you're like, okay, cool, I'll just deal like 4 to everything, lose 3 of my tokens, you lose 2 or 3 dudes, and then I get 3 bonus cards to look at next turn or whatever. Right? It's an interesting design for a card, if nothing else. Keys to the house. This sounds like one of the most country things we used to say. You got the keys to the house, you know. But keys to the house. 1 colorless artifact. You can pay 1 and tap it. Sacrifice the card. Search your library for a basic land card. Reveal it. Put it into your hand. Or you can pay 3 and tap it. Sacrifice it. Lock or unlock or door of target room you control. Activate only as a sorcery. This is interesting because, like, if I'm playing the door deck, I don't know if I want this, but getting the ability to reuse a door is kind of neat. Though I would say generally, if you're going to play this, it's probably going to be unlimited just because of the option to go search for a land and keep hitting all your land drops. And then you get the upside of being able to use it with the room later if you want to. I don't know where this preview came from because it's formatted very poorly, but Unnerving Grasp, 2 colorless and a blue for a sorcery. Return up to 1 target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Manifest Dread. I was about to say we have a bunch of cards that have been bouncing things lately. Some that bounce 2 things, your opponent's things, a single thing, you can gift a thing. But being able to bounce a thing and make a thing, that's kind of cool. Downside is obviously that it's a sorcery. It'd probably be too good, though, if you could bounce a thing, make a 2/2, get to block something. Like, it'd just be too strong. I guess I'm just thinking about this, like, would I play this in the Manifest Dread deck? My first instinct is maybe, but I'm starting to feel like there just may not be room for this card. I think there's going to be a lot of other stuff you want to play, and this just won't make the cut. Man, I feel like we loaded up on rares and mythics for today, but Ghostly Dancers, 3 colorless, white, white, for a 2/5 flying spirit. When it enters, return an enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand, or unlock a locked door of a room you control. Eerie is when an enchantment you control enters, and when you fully unlock a room, create a 3/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So, see, these cards are kind of weird because they're a little bit limiting because they cost so much, right? It's 5 for a 2/5, but if you do have other enchantments, obviously, then you're making a 3/1 every single time you play an enchantment. It's not even a once a turn thing, so that's actually pretty cool. I don't know if this is a thing you would play in a room deck, because you're already going to be spending a bunch of mana trying to lock or unlock your rooms or do all that stuff. But this could be maybe an upper end piece for the enchantment based decks. I could see that potentially, and then just coming over the top with some flyers. So, like, I don't know. It's an interesting card. It makes sense that it's a rare. It's doing a lot, and it fits a couple different deck types. But the cost, especially to the power ratio on this card, could be what keeps it from being in a bunch of decks. Unidentified hover ship. This is cool. A colorless white, so 3 mana for a 2/2 artifact vehicle. It has flying. When it enters, exile up to 1 target creature with toughness 5 or less. When it leaves the battlefield, the exiled card's owner manifests dread. Oh! So for 3 mana, you get a 2/2. You exile up to 1 target creature with toughness 5 or less. You just get rid of it. And then if this leaves the battlefield, the opponent doesn't even get that thing back. They just manifest dread something else. I don't know how I feel about this card. Because we have a bunch of things that just exile stuff and then the opponent gets the thing back. But exiling a thing and then maybe they get to get a 2/2 and it's a gamble on if they get something better. This feels playable. I will say that. And it has a crew of only 1, which is super nice. So even a small creature deck can crew this up. It has flying. It can come over the top. I don't hate anything about this card. I just don't know quite what deck I'd want to put it in yet. So this one, I'd put a question mark next to, but just kind of like earmark it because you could end up seeing it in play. Dissection tools. Gross. 5 colorless. Artifact equipment. That's a lot for an equipment. So this needs to do something really good. When it enters, manifest dread. All right, so you'll get a 2/2. Then attach dissection tools to that creature. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has death touch and lifelink. Ooh, and the equip is sacrifice a creature. All right, maybe this is playable. I mean, you pay 5 mana to get a 4/4 death touch lifelink minimum, right? You manifest dread, you put something down, it gets +2/+2 and 2 abilities. And if you're already doing the manifest dread thing, you're probably going to have some ways to get free creatures regularly off the top of your library. So sacrificing something, which potentially could be a land or whatever, you never know, to turn something into a +2/+2 death touch lifelinker, that's reasonable, actually. I think if anything, it'll just be, does this card make enough sense for some decks, or those particular decks, to hold up against the aggro decks? Because this is a 5 mana thing you could end up sitting on for a little bit, and that could be a little tough. So the cost might hold it back, but it's definitely not the abilities or the cost on this one. Beastie Beatdown. A red and a green for sorcery. Choose target creature you control and target creature an opponent controls. If you have Delirium, and there are 4 more card types among stuff in your graveyard, you put 2 +1/+1 counters on the creature you control. Then creature you control deals damage equal to its power to a creature an opponent controls. So if you're doing a creature-based Delirium deck, or creature-heavy Delirium deck, this kind of makes sense. It's just a fight spell where you get an additional +2/+2 on your creature. But what makes that good, though, in a way, is that your creature gets +2/+2, so you can fight something and still get into combat. Because sometimes with the fight spells, the downside is your creature already has damage on it, so you send it into combat, and it's just going to die to something small. Whereas here, you might be able to still fight a reasonably sized thing, and then your opponent still has to block with a substantial creature to kill it, which could make a bit of a difference. But I would question, is it just outright better than playing any of the bite spells we have for 1 or 2 mana if you don't get those 2 counters? So I don't think it's significantly better, especially since some of the spells you could play are at instant speed. And to do the same effect, we're already playing, Hunter's Talent. So it's a neat card. I just don't know if it ended up making the cut. Rip Spawn Hunter. 2 colorless, white, green. Actually, you know what I just realized? Rip, is that Ripley being the Spawn Hunter? Just putting that out there. I don't know. That just hit me all of a sudden, all at once. But whatever. So Rip Spawn Hunter is 2 colorless, white, green for a 4/4 legendary creature, human survivor. So at the beginning of your second main phase, if Rip is tapped, reveal the top X card of your library, where X is its power. Put any number of creatures and or vehicles with different powers from among them into your hand. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. This is pretty cool. It's a 4/4 body, so there's a chance it's going to survive combat. Again, the card itself is even telling you can play this with vehicles and whatnot. This lets you get, I'm assuming, at least 2 cards into your hand, looking at 4 cards, unless, well, not necessarily. You could have some situation where, like, they're the same power and you have 2 lands. But a lot of times, I think you're going to be able to hit 2 cards. Put those into your hand. You just kind of keep having fodder for a lot of stuff. This is actually kind of good, too, against the discard decks, right? This is a way to make sure you have cards in your hand repeatedly. So, I don't mind this card at all. It's probably the third, I would say, survivor that I think has a good enough ability, even on its own, that you would play it. I think Kona was the other one as a 4/3, lets you put stuff into play for free. And the white one that can move counters around or whatever. +1/+1 counters. This one's really cool because, again, it's a 4/4 for 4, reasonable cost. And when you attack with it, your opponent has to kill it or you get free stuff, right, into your hand. So, yeah, this is actually a really cool card. Ripchain Razorkin, 3 colorless and a red for a 5/3 human berserker with reach, randomly. Pay 2 and a red, sacrifice a land, draw a card. Okay, not great. It is a common, so I'm definitely playing with this in limited. But a 4 mana 5/3 with reach? Yeah, I'm down. And then late in the game, if you just don't need all those lands anymore, just start ditching land to draw cards. I dig it. It's not even a tap effect, so you could do it multiple times in a turn. So yeah, this is actually a quality card for limited play. Winter's Intervention. Colorless and a black. Instant. Deals 2 damage to target creature. You gain 2 life. Alright, this is just a little simple removal spell in black. Again, you're probably only playing this in limited action. I don't think you really care, unless there's something that cares about you gaining life to deal damage, drain your opponent's life, something like that, then maybe you would play it. But generally, you're not going to play this card in constructed play. Cackling Slasher, 3 colors and a black for a 3/3 human assassin with Death Touch. Enters with a +1/+1 counter on it if a creature died this turn. I mean, we have an assassin. It was funny because I believe just today or yesterday I put up assassin deck that people could check out. And one of the things I was saying is there weren't any assassins coming out in the set. And here we go. Here's an assassin. It's not great for the cost, but, you know, 4/4 for 4 with Death Touch could be totally reasonable. Again, I think you're mostly playing this in limited. I think don't think we're playing this in constructed. Living Phone. That's a weird one. 2 colorless and a white. Artifact creature toy. When Living Phone dies, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature with power 2 or less from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library. This is a 2/1. So you pay 3 mana for a 2/1, and when it dies, you put something 2 or less from your top 5 cards into your hand. This is one I would say is serviceable. If you're playing some type of deck where toys matter, then sure, I guess you'd play it because it replaces itself. But that's kind of all it has going for me. Get Out. that's the appropriate answer to most horror movies. Blue, instant. Choose one. You counter target creature or enchantment spell, or you can return 1 or 2 target creatures and or enchantments you own to your hand. Alright, so they can save a creature or 2, let you reuse some Enter's abilities. Just a simple counter for creatures or enchantments. I don't hate this. I think it's, like, the only deck I can think of that probably wants this is the Haughty Shin whatever deck, which I'm already not a huge fan of. But this does fit those type of decks pretty well, just giving you a counter to a lot of things that'll be played in the next set, because there's a lot of random things that are enchantments. And then occasionally you can just bounce your stuff to save your creatures, which is super nice. So yeah, just a quality uncommon. All right, so this one needs a translation. It is Marina Vendrell is the name of the card. It is Wooburg, so white, blue, black, red, green for a 3/5. Legendary creature, I'm assuming human from looking at the picture. And when this enters, reveal the top 7 cards of your library. Put all enchantment cards revealed this way into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Tap, choose target room you control, lock or unlock one of its doors. Activate only as a sorcery. Ooh, this is an interesting one. So, I've been thinking about what does the basis of the room deck look like, right? Is it going to be different colors. You know, is it 3 colors? Is it 2 colors? Hadn't really considered 5 color, though I think we have 1 room that allows us to make 5 colors, and we have an enchantment creature that lets us tap for any color. Maybe this is the only 5 color card, and the thing is still like green, red, blue based. Like, I don't know what it would look like. But if so, this is a pretty sweet card for that. Being able to lock or unlock a room to be able to reuse them is super powerful. Being able to just load up, like you play this card, if it enters, you put all enchantment cards. So if you're playing a room deck, I'm assuming at least 2 or 3 rooms, or some other creature that happens to be an enchantment. Yeah, this is an interesting card. I'm kind of into it, but I think its prevalence is going to be based on how good the room decks are. Though I say that, you could also play this in just an enchantment-based deck that doesn't care about rooms at all. And just make sure your hand stays loaded with enchantments. Killer's Mask. 2 colorless and a black. It's an equipment artifact. When it enters, you manifest Dread, and then you attach this to it. Equipped creature gains Menace. Pay 2 to equip. Yeah, now we're getting into the weird space of what cost is worth it for Manifest Dread, right? Like we have a green one that's just 2, and then you just manifest Dread. Now this costs 3, you manifest Dread, but you also get Menace on that 2/2, right? And then you start to ask your question like, okay, how many cards are we playing that actually make a 2/2 creature? And what are extra abilities worth on the spells that we're playing? So you don't fall behind or whatever, and you're getting good value. I think that's the pretty tough part here. But if nothing else, I feel like this at least is on the fringes of playable. It's not crazy. Fear of Exposure. This is, what are those, like 4 faces inside of this weird mouth? Like, what's even this artwork sometimes, man. Fear of Exposure, 2 colorless and a green. It's a 5/4. This has to have a downside. It's a 3 mana 5/4. Enchantment creature Nightmare. As an additional cost to cast this, tap 2 untapped creatures and or lands you control. And it has trample. That's not the worst downside, actually. I was thinking it was going to be worse than that. So you pay 3, and then you either tap some additional number of up to 2 lands or creatures. That's doable. Even on like turn 4, really. Right? Like you play a creature, maybe you go turn 1 creature, turn 2 creature, turn 3, boom, you tap some things, you have this. That's not crazy, even on turn 3 to have this down. Turn 4 for sure. And then it's a 5/4 trampler. And if you're playing anything that cares about enchantments, this card feels actually really playable. I mean, later in the game, if you don't have anything out, then it's just pay 5, get a 5/4 trampler. You know, so that's the worst it's ever going to be. But yeah, this is interesting. I might find a spot for this type of card. Miasma Demon. 4 colorless, black for a 5/4. It's a demon, obviously it's in the name. As flying, when it enters, you may discard any number of cards. When you do, up to that many target creatures each get -2/-2 till end of turn. You know, in limited, this is just a big flyer that maybe has an upside that you get to kill off like one thing. I think generally speaking, you're just not going to have cards in hand when you cast a card like this with it being 6 mana. Unless some weird way like you reanimated it or whatever, but they're just better cards you're going to want to reanimate than this. So yeah, outside of limited play, I can't imagine this gets any real action. Exercise, colorless and a white, sorcery. Exile target artifact, enchantment, or creature with power 4 or greater. Ooh, okay. So we have Disenchant at instant speed that destroys artifact or enchantment. We have Destroy Evil that destroys an enchantment or a creature with toughness 4 or greater, I believe. And now for sorcery speed for 2 mana, we can get an artifact enchantment or a creature power 4 or greater. And it exiles the thing, which is big in a world with like Delirium and other stuff. So, I think generally we want instant speed in a lot of situations. And since white has those options available, you're probably just going to pick the one that hits the most relevant targets. However, 2 mana to exile your choice of those things, like you get an artifact enchantment or a creature, this is pretty strong. If nothing else, this could be a quality sideboard card. Whew, well, all right, y'all. We got to talk about a lot of rares and mythics today from Duskmourn, and I'm a little bit surprised. I didn't even pay attention to that many of them still being available. So, Yeah, I guess I want to know, of the rares and mythics today, what was the most interesting to you? Because we had like the Overlord, we had an actual good survivor card, we had the crazy 5-color things that works with rooms and enchantments. Like there were so many today to talk about. So let me know what you're excited about. And if you want to get caught up, like always, I'm going to go ahead and leave a link over here or a video so you can go watch that one and know what's coming up in Duskmourn. But that's all I have you for now. We'll see you next time.